Hey everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and happy 2020 to everyone. And this is episode 252 of Album of the Day, in which for today's album review, I'm going to be reviewing an album that you may have seen in my top 10 albums of 2019, from the duo known as Dylan Brady and Laura Les, who are really sort of creating some of the most genre-bending and sort of unnameable kind of music out there. I mean, this is the kind of group that's making music that's really unlike anything else I've ever heard before or will probably ever hear in the future. I am talking about the duo known as 100 gecs, and obviously I'm going to review their debut album released on May 31st, 2019 on Dog Show Records, and the album is called 1000 gecs. Now, this is a project that came to me kind of out of nowhere, really, but then again, that's pretty much how this album was for pretty much everyone that's heard it. I first heard it sometime around the middle of June, and when I first heard bits and pieces of it, I have to be honest, I didn't know what to think of it. You know, I was just thinking, what the hell is this? You know, it just sounds like two dudes making noise. But then, after a while, the song Money Machine, which did make it as one of my favorite singles of the year, it's in my top 5 singles of 2019, actually. You know, after a while, that song got stuck in my head, and I started coming back to it over and over again, and then eventually I decided, okay, let's check out the full record. Let's see how this rolls. And I will say, upon listening to this album for the first time, I was blown away. This is easily one of the most innovative and most sort of exciting pop albums I've heard all year. But then again, even though pop is one of the sounds on here for sure, it definitely takes elements of emo pop as well as like kind of that PC music, more experimental pop that you would hear from people like Sophie or even Charlie XCX. But then there's also elements of emo rap, SoundCloud trap. There's elements of nightcore. There's some trance, some dubstep, some industrial and noise to be found in here. So, you know, this is definitely essentially kind of like a poppier and, you know, kind of less demented Death Grips a little bit at times. At times. And then there are songs that will also incorporate elements of, I'm even hearing pop punk at some points. I'm hearing a little bit of alternative country at some points. I mean, this is a variety of sounds that are like not supposed to go together, and like that somehow managed to work. And in fact, you know, even some of 100 gecs' influences would be kind of bad taste to some listeners, like Skrillex, or I've heard comparisons to the noise rock and indie rock outfit Sleigh Bells is definitely an influence on what they do. I mean, right from the opening track, we get this really kind of warped and weird track banger with the song 745 Sticky, which has some pretty interesting satire about, like, you know, the busy mornings that we all as citizens kind of go through, where we gotta wake up at 7:45 in the morning, it comes to the point of us sort of being tired of planning and doing all this stuff all the time, and like you just reach a point where, you know, you can't do anything even if you want to, and it's also got a very catchy hook on there that definitely right off the bat sort of pulls me in and gets me all excited about the album. But then the song has this really odd outro. It transitions into this really kind of cute, peppy synth solo, but then it has like this incredibly unsettling kind of noisy ending where it sounds like someone basically, you know, futzing around with the garage band equipment a little bit. And then we have the song Money Machine, which, this track has easily one of the funniest opening lines I've heard all year, even though I know it's supposed to be kind of some sort of really kind of snarky insult is kind of the whole point. But I love some of the lyrics on here, like, you talk a lot of big game for someone with such a small truck. Look at those arms. Your arms look so cute. They look like little cigarettes. I bet I could smoke you. I could roast you. And then you love me. You text me I love you. And then I go ghost you. The lyrics on here are really ridiculous, but yet they work at the same time. Also love the mixture of like bluegrass dobros at the beginning of the track, but then we also, before it transitions into a trap beat that sort of reminds me of a more distorted version of any given beat off of Playboi Carti's Die Lit album, which yet another album that is the kind of thing that a lot of listeners probably didn't like on first listen, but then after a while you just can't stop listening to it. In fact, I just recently started listening to Die Lit recently. As the title suggests, it's pretty lit. Pretty lit. Dylan Brady's singing and lyrics on the track are hilarious too. Also another song that, though it does seem like a pop song, it does close out with this rather kind of grotesque ending. So because of these parts, the comparisons to Death Grips shouldn't be too surprising to you. Then we have the track 800 dB Cloud, which also has some of the craziest lines I've heard all year. Like, the line that really stood out to me would have to be the line of, I'm about to hit the booth. I mean, I don't know what that line is supposed to mean. It just sounds so crazy, but yet, when a line is this memorable, you just can't really help but kind of sort of smile in awe at it. And this is another song that, kind of satirizes sort of what emo rap is all about, kind of like lyrics about depression and, being addicted to drugs and also making just a shit ton of noise too. I mean, that's pretty much what the SoundCloud rap is all about. I mean, Little Uzi Vert actually is an influence on what these on what Dylan and Laura are doing too. And this track is probably the most obviously Little Uzi Vert influenced on the entire album. Love how the song turns from kind of morbid indie rock to eventually this like distorted rap rock with kind of with really great drumming, some kind of off-kilter guitars, and some like auto-tuned kind of lo-fi singing from Dylan. Said Dylan. Again, this sounds like the kind of thing that would be kind of unlistenable to the ears, and not that I consider this easy listening at all. But it actually really works in the context of just how wild this album is. And then the song features this really disturbing kind of heavy metal outro. In fact, this outro reminds me of some of the more harrowing, heavier tracks off of Beck's Mellow Gold a little bit. And I did look up on Genius that even though the lyrics here are unintelligible, they actually do say some lyrics at the end of this track, and they repeat that hit the booth phrase in a pretty kind of almost not really there kind of way. Then the next track is a bit of an interlude for the album, I Need Help Immediately, which is a track that it sounds like, again, someone sort of messing around with the garage band loops or sounds, basically taking all the sounds from the garage band loops and sort of creating this really kind of strange musical equivalent to maybe some sort of mental schizophrenic episode or something like that. I love the mixture of kind of chirpy keyboard lines, kind of fragmented percussion, plucked strings, and these weird voices saying stuff like, "I need help, immediately, please do something, back once again." It gives Radiohead's Fitter Happier voice, the cheesy Apple computer voice, a run for its money. Then the next track on here is probably my favorite here, which is the song "Stupid Horse." This song is it's easily one of the catchiest, funniest, and most sort of most addictive pieces of ska punk I've heard, not just from this album or for 2019 for that matter, probably period. Sorry, Sublime. This song is way more addictive than your songs. I love how the song is kind of this satirical, but sort of very kind of snarky critique of capitalism. So before you listen to the song, think, are they really singing about horses? Just dig a little deeper. You'll find some more political you'll find some more political stuff in there. And also just to flat out. And also a very fun chorus to "Stupid horse, I just fell out of the Porsche. Lost the money in my bank account, oh no." It's the kind of thing that would start out annoying on first listen, but then after a while you're just like, I'm gonna play this catchy piece of pop punk over and over again. Because even though I haven't really listened to even though I've listened to the entire album like 7 or 8 times at least, I didn't really listen to it all the way through every single time I came to it, but there were always moments on it that, I would come back to pretty much more than anything else on this particular album. The song has some really cool gang vocals at the end too, and also love the way that it mixes pop punk guitars with a trap beat. It definitely reminds me of some of the SoundCloud, emo and hip-hop mixes that have become so popular through SoundCloud. The song "I Would Never Stop You" is this kind of atmospheric piece of emo pop featuring this pretty catchy main mantra of "Baby, know that I got you, I would never stop you, I would never stop you, 'cause I'm going crazy, crazy for you, baby, and you already know, don't feel like." And the synths on the track are actually quite beautiful, even though the track does have this really unexpected dubstep break in the middle, but the synths on that breakdown are just so fire. And I also love the song's kind of triumphant ending section too, where it takes one of the last notes sung by Laura Les and creates this kind of skipped loop, therefore creating this really cool melody at the end. Then we get a little bit of satire about dating apps and DMing and all the things that have become a pretty big part of our social lives in the digital world on the track "Ringtone," which I love how the song sort of, it does drop references to all the things that, normal people would do on their phones, but then after a while it actually becomes rather emotional as she's sort of saying things like, "I got a little thing for you, I got a little crush or something." She's kind of, a little bit, afraid to admit, that she's in love with someone, which is why these lyrics sound as though she's feeling kind of, depressed and sort of doing all this for entertainment to sort of escape herself from her problems. So from her problems, meanwhile, Dylan comes in with some lines about this other person's ringtone, just making them sick and just making them want to, unplug completely from their phone. So definitely some very, interesting satire, and obviously you can't forget that hook. "My boy's got his own ringtone, It's the only one I know. It's the only one I know. It's just, it'll get stuck in your head instantly. Then we get another pretty odd interlude that sounds like someone, messing around on GarageBand or Fruity Loops or whatever on the track Gec, which this definitely is one of the tracks that has grown on me. I would say prior to this review, one criticism I've kind of had about this track is that at times it just felt like really good ideas, not really coming together. And also some ideas not really wowing me. But now the track has kind of grown on me in that the transition from the kind of off-kilter or orchestral arrangements into this more kind of noisier midsection actually kind of works. I mean, this is pretty much the whole point of this album. The whole point of this album is to kind of jumble like thousands of ideas that maybe don't always that don't always fit on the record, but yet it's just its whole intent is to just have fun, kind of changing boundaries of pop music. In fact, I will say I think the usage of the kind of cheesy computer voice on here going gec 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 really is a perfect example of computer technology being used to its full advantage on this album. And also the closing part at the end I think is really beautiful as Laura sings about saying that she's not stronger than this other person, but saying it like it feels like a relief to sort of let it out. And this section actually reminds me of kind of like an old school Owl City song a little bit, like pre-Fireflies, obviously. Then we have the track Hand Crushed by Mallet, which though it is one of the more conventional songs on the album, which is kind of why it was kind of my least favorite track for a little while, though it has grown on me. Even this track feels still a bit more like satirical than what you would expect from this kind of emo pop. Dylan sort of talking about how he's bored and finding a way to kill time, and his way of killing time is just like, sitting in the studio all day, coming up with all kinds of cool ideas, which is essentially what 100 gecs are doing. So in that context, the song is pretty fire, even though some of these lines are actually being said by Laura Les. And also saying some pretty memorable lines like her. I would have never expected that Laura's opening line on the track would be, so we go. You're trying to find a way to catch the corpus bride. She's working in my mind. And then the closing track on here, Gec to You, is this little like triumphant victory lap at the end of the album, where this is probably the closest to more like a true love song in the album, even though there are some pretty, you can tell that still something is off in this relationship, as they're saying lines, dishes are all piling up. That's cool, because at least we got food. Yes, everything is piling up, but that's cool, because at least I got you. It's like this very catchy, fun, hilarious, melodramatic, emo pop song. Song that also does feature some pretty impeccable production. The layering of the beats with the electronics is done so incredibly well here. Before the song closes into this kind of into this very kind of distorted as hell kind of unsettling end section, which I think it's cool how that's sort of like the triumphant ending of the album. That still feels like everything about this album just sort of falling apart into a million pieces and sort of becoming just nothing more than just kind of a distorted mess. I mean that as a compliment, by the way. Yeah, 1000 gecs is like easily one of the best pop albums of 2019. Also one of the best, I think, of the 2010s in terms of how original and how out there this project really is. Again, this is the kind of project even though it's gotten a lot of critical acclaim, this is the kind of thing that you you might not get it on first listen. In fact, I know some listeners who are probably going to hate this album on first listen, but trust me, after a while, the ideas are going to come to you, and you're just going to listen to it over and over again. So, if you don't like it on first listen, that's fine, because I do know that, if you feel that way, it's a possibility. This album will likely grow on you if songs like Money Machine and Stupid Horse, after a while, just kind of get sort of ingrained in your consciousness. Just this. In fact, I will say this is actually, as of right now, my second favorite album of 2019, even though I rated it a little lower than that in my top 10 of the year. Man, this record is like, this record is just flat out, kind of absurd, crazy, wild, experimental pop gold. So I'm definitely going with a strong 9 out of 10 for this new 100 gecs album, 1000 gecs, and I'll see you for episode 253.